Mental strength is not about being unshakable. It's about learning how to stand tall even when the ground beneath you moves. In a world that constantly tests your patience, confidence, and peace of mind, true strength comes from mastering your thoughts, controlling your emotions, and shaping your inner dialogue. It is the foundation of resilience, focus, and freedom. To become mentally strong is to understand that your greatest power lies not in what happens to you, but in how you respond. Your mind is the single most powerful instrument you will ever possess. It is both a battlefield and a sanctuary, depending on how you use it. To take ownership of your mind means to reclaim control over your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, to stop being a passenger in your own consciousness and start being the driver. Every thought you think, every reaction you have, and every belief you hold shapes the way you experience life. The tragedy is that most people never realize this. They live in mental autopilot, reacting to circumstances instead of directing them, surrendering their peace to external noise rather than cultivating strength from within. The truth is, your mind will serve someone. If not you, then the world around you. It will be programmed by whatever you feed it: the opinions of others, the fears of society, the distractions of technology, or the illusions of comparison. When you do not consciously shape your thoughts, the world will do it for you. The first act of ownership is awareness, the decision to observe your thoughts without judgment. Notice what dominates your internal dialogue. Are you focused on progress or on problems? Do you speak to yourself with belief or with doubt? The language you use inside determines the life you live outside. Taking ownership also means understanding that not every thought is true just because it appears in your mind. Thoughts are not facts, they are interpretations influenced by memory, emotion, and perception. The strong learn to question their thoughts the same way a good economist questions the stability of a market. Is this thought useful? Is it real, or is it just a reaction? That habit of questioning builds clarity. It separates truth from illusion, strength from weakness. Once you learn to filter your thoughts, you begin to see how much power you have been giving away to fear, anger, or self doubt. Mental ownership is not about control through suppression, it's about guidance through awareness. You don't silence your mind, you educate it, you feed it with ideas that challenge you, perspectives that expand you, and truths that ground you. Every book you read, every conversation you have, every piece of information you choose to absorb is a deposit in your mental bank. The question is, are you investing in growth or in anxiety? Too many people allow their mental wealth to be drained by gossip, negativity, and distraction. They fill their minds with noise, then wonder why peace feels so distant. The disciplined mind, however, treats attention as currency, spending it only on what builds value. A person who truly owns their mind learns to transform internal chaos into creative energy. They understand that worry, fear, and stress are signals, not shackles. Instead of being consumed by them, they investigate their origin. Fear might reveal where courage is needed. Doubt might expose where preparation is lacking. Stress might indicate imbalance. Ownership turns emotions into feedback rather than obstacles. This shift in perspective gives you leverage over life's challenges because you are no longer reacting blindly. You are responding intelligently. Taking ownership of your mind also means letting go of victimhood. The mentally weak look outward, blaming the economy, society, or circumstance for their unhappiness. The mentally strong look inward, knowing that no external condition can define their internal state unless they allow it. They practice responsibility, not as punishment, but as empowerment. When you accept full responsibility for your thoughts and reactions, you reclaim your freedom. You become untouchable because your peace is no longer at the mercy of the world's volatility. Another essential part of mental ownership is discipline, the quiet, consistent effort to direct your mind toward what matters. Just as a gardener weeds out what doesn't belong, you must remove thoughts that choke your potential. Discipline is not punishment, it is protection. It shields your focus from distraction, your confidence from doubt, and your dreams from fear. The more disciplined your mind becomes, the more freedom you experience. That paradox is the heart of mastery. True mental freedom comes only through disciplined awareness. Taking control of your mind does not mean you will never face negativity again. It means negativity will no longer rule you. You will still encounter pain, failure, and disappointment, but you will process them differently. You will learn to pause before reacting, to interpret rather than panic, to create meaning instead of collapse under pressure. Ownership gives you emotional independence, the ability to remain centered no matter how unstable the world becomes. Ultimately, taking ownership of your mind is the foundation of all strength. It is the difference between living intentionally and existing passively. When you master your inner world, the outer world loses its power to manipulate you. You stop chasing validation, stop fearing rejection, and stop surrendering your energy to every passing difficulty. Instead, you begin to create from within, building peace, confidence, and clarity that no circumstance can erase. To own your mind is to reclaim your humanity in a world that profits from your distraction. It is the revolutionary act of choosing thought over impulse, purpose over habit, and awareness over reaction. The strong are not those who never stumble, they are those who know how to rise, rebuild, and refocus because they understand that the mind is not a prison but a tool. When you take ownership of it, you discover the quiet truth that has always been waiting beneath the noise. Your thoughts shape your reality, and your reality begins the moment you decide to think differently. Adversity is life's most consistent teacher, though many never recognize its lessons until much later. Every struggle, disappointment, or failure carries a message, not of defeat, but of development. To transform adversity into education means to stop viewing hardship as punishment and start seeing it as a form of instruction. It is to realize that growth rarely occurs in comfort and that every obstacle contains within it the blueprint of your evolution. The difference between those who crumble under pressure and those who rise from it lies in perspective. One asks, "Why me?" while the other asks, "What can I learn from this?" Every human being, at some point, faces moments when life seems unfair, when plans collapse, trust breaks, or the path forward becomes fogged with uncertainty. These moments test the spirit. They challenge not only your patience, but also your identity. Yet hidden beneath the discomfort is a force that sharpens you. Adversity reveals what comfort hides. It exposes your weaknesses, your dependencies, your illusions. When everything feels secure, it's easy to believe you are strong. But true strength is measured only when safety is gone. It's in the moments of loss and confusion that your real character is forged. When hardship arrives, the mind naturally resists. It wants to escape, to return to ease, to reject the pain. But pain, when faced with awareness, becomes a mirror. It reflects what you need to change, what you need to release, and what you still cling to unnecessarily. Adversity strips away illusions, showing you what truly matters. The discomfort of challenge becomes the friction that polishes your understanding. Without resistance, you cannot refine your vision. Just as metal is tempered by fire, the mind and spirit are strengthened through struggle. To transform adversity into education requires humility, the humility to admit that you do not know everything, that your plans may fail, and that failure itself can be the most powerful classroom. This humility opens the door to wisdom. You begin to see that every setback carries information. When a plan fails, it teaches you about strategy. When someone betrays you, it teaches you about boundaries. When life delays your goals, it teaches you patience and timing. Adversity, then, is not the end of the lesson, but the beginning of awareness. The question is not whether you will face difficulty, but whether you will learn from it or merely endure it. The process of transforming adversity into growth is uncomfortable, but it is also empowering. It demands that you look directly into your pain and search for meaning rather than escape. Avoidance keeps you trapped in repetition. Reflection frees you through understanding. Every disappointment becomes data, feedback from life about what needs improvement. The mind that resists learning from adversity remains immature, while the mind that seeks insight through struggle matures rapidly. The more you train yourself to look for lessons instead of losses, the more control you gain over your own development. It is also important to understand that adversity doesn't come only in dramatic forms like tragedy or failure. It appears in daily frustrations, in rejection, uncertainty, loneliness, or self doubt. These small trials, when met with awareness, prepare you for larger challenges. Mental strength is not built in grand victories, it's built in quiet moments of perseverance, in the decision to keep moving forward despite exhaustion or fear. Every minor challenge you overcome adds to your foundation of resilience. When greater tests arrive, you will already possess the stability to endure them with clarity instead of chaos. The people who grow the most are not those who had the easiest lives, but those who learned how to use difficulty as fuel. They understand that suffering without purpose is wasted energy, but suffering with purpose becomes transformation. They stop asking for life to be easier and start asking to become wiser. Each challenge becomes a kind of apprenticeship in self mastery. It teaches adaptability, the ability to change course when necessary without losing vision. It teaches patience, the ability to wait without despair. It teaches empathy, the ability to understand others through shared struggle. In short, adversity expands your humanity. To turn adversity into education, you must also resist bitterness. Many people let pain harden them. They turn cold, defensive, and closed. But wisdom requires openness. It asks you to remain soft enough to feel and strong enough to understand. The goal is not to avoid hurt, but to use it as a lesson in balance. When life wounds you, it is not asking for your resentment, it is inviting your attention. There is always something to learn, even from the harshest experiences: how to let go, how to rebuild, how to forgive, how to rise again. When you begin to see every struggle as a form of training, fear loses its grip. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start seeing yourself as a student of experience. Adversity becomes your curriculum, life becomes your teacher. The more you learn, the more resilient you become. You develop inner calm because you know that every difficulty is temporary, but the strength gained from it is permanent. You begin to walk through life with a quiet confidence, not because you expect things to be easy, but because you know you are capable of handling whatever comes. In the end, adversity is not the enemy of growth. It is its architect. It shapes your mind, sculpts your character, and strengthens your resolve. The hardships you face today are the education that will empower you tomorrow. You do not become strong by avoiding struggle, you become strong by understanding it. And when you finally realize that life's challenges are not barriers but teachers, you stop merely surviving them. You start evolving through them. Emotional discipline is the quiet strength that separates those who react from those who respond, those who are ruled by chaos from those who remain calm in the storm. It is not about suppressing feelings or pretending they don't exist. It is about understanding them, guiding them, and transforming them into constructive energy. To master emotional discipline is to gain power over the most unpredictable force within yourself, the storm of emotion that can either destroy or direct your potential. Every emotion carries information. Anger shows you where a boundary has been crossed. Fear reveals where courage is needed. Sadness exposes what you value most. The problem arises when these emotions are left unexamined. Uncontrolled emotion clouds judgment and weakens decision making. It causes you to speak words you later regret, to act in ways that sabotage your own peace, and to surrender control to momentary impulses. Emotional discipline is the art of creating space between feeling and action, the space where wisdom lives. To begin mastering your emotions, you must first accept that they are not your enemies. Emotions are natural, essential, and deeply human. They give color to your life and connect you to others. but they were never meant to lead you blindly. The moment you allow emotion to dictate behavior, you become reactive rather than intentional. A strong mind understands that emotions are signals, not orders. They inform you, but they should not define you. The goal is not to feel less, but to feel deeply with clarity and control. One of the keys to emotional mastery is awareness. You cannot regulate what you do not recognize. Most people experience emotion unconsciously. They become angry without realizing the buildup that led to it, or they spiral into anxiety without understanding its root cause. Awareness requires that you pause, observe, and name what you feel before reacting. This simple pause is the foundation of self control. It transforms chaos into comprehension. The moment you can identify an emotion, you begin to take power over it. It is no longer an invisible force. It becomes an experience you can work with. The next step is to trace the source of your emotions. Behind every strong reaction lies an unmet expectation, a past wound, or a hidden fear. When you ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? You shift from being consumed by emotion to learning from it. This self inquiry transforms raw emotion into insight. For instance, anger may not simply be rage, it might be disappointment in yourself or frustration from feeling unheard. Sadness may not just be loss, it may reveal where you have placed too much dependence on others for your sense of worth. Understanding these roots allows you to address the true cause rather than the surface reaction. Emotional discipline also demands patience, the willingness to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. Most emotional outbursts occur because people cannot tolerate their own feelings. They rush to escape through distraction, indulgence, or blame. But every emotion has a natural rhythm. It rises, peaks, and fades. If you can stay present through that wave without impulsive action, the emotion will pass, leaving you with understanding instead of regret. Patience is the bridge between feeling and freedom. Another vital component is detachment, not in the sense of indifference, but in the sense of perspective. Detachment means you can observe your emotions without drowning in them. It allows you to act from principle rather than from pressure. When you cultivate inner stillness, external chaos loses its grip. You learn that you can experience anger without becoming angry, feel fear without becoming fearful. You gain the ability to choose your response, and that choice is where true power resides. Practicing emotional discipline in daily life requires consistency. You develop it through small acts of control, pausing before reacting to criticism, breathing deeply during conflict, or choosing to listen instead of defend. Each act strengthens your emotional muscles. Over time, you begin to notice that the situations which once triggered you now barely move you. This is not emotional numbness, it is maturity. You are no longer a prisoner to the volatility of your own reactions. Emotionally disciplined people are not cold or distant. They are grounded. They feel deeply but respond wisely. Their calm presence brings stability to others because they are no longer tossed around by the waves of emotion. They can navigate pressure with clarity, handle disagreement without hostility, and lead with composure even in crisis. This steadiness does not come from ignoring emotion, but from mastering its flow. Ultimately, emotional discipline is the foundation of every other form of strength. Without it, intelligence becomes impulsive, ambition becomes reckless, and relationships become fragile. With it, you gain mastery over your mind, your energy, and your life. You stop being controlled by the moods of the moment and start living according to values and vision. Emotional mastery gives you freedom, the freedom to choose peace over chaos, wisdom over impulse, and growth over reaction. To master your emotions is to claim sovereignty over yourself. It is to realize that while you cannot always control what happens around you, you can always control how you respond within you. Every time you respond with patience instead of anger, awareness instead of confusion, and compassion instead of judgment, you strengthen that inner authority. And in doing so, you build a mind that remains calm in conflict, a heart that remains kind under pressure, and a spirit that no storm can shake. Thinking independently is one of the rarest and most powerful skills a person can develop. It is the ability to form opinions, make decisions, and create beliefs that originate from your own understanding rather than from imitation or influence. In a world overflowing with noise, where conformity is rewarded and questioning is often discouraged, independent thought is both an act of courage and a declaration of freedom. It means trusting your capacity to reason, to analyze, and to see the truth even when others cannot or will not. It means standing alone if necessary, guided not by popularity but by principle. From a young age, most people are trained to think according to systems designed by others: schools, families, media, and institutions. They are told what is right, what is valuable, and what success should look like. Over time, they begin to mistake repetition for truth. They quote ideas without questioning their origin and follow rules without examining their purpose. Independent thought begins the moment you dare to ask, "Is this true for me?" That simple question opens the door to consciousness. It shifts your position from a passive receiver of information to an active creator of understanding. To think independently does not mean rejecting everything society offers. It means examining everything with awareness. It means listening to advice, but evaluating it through your own reason. It means observing traditions, but questioning whether they serve your growth or simply your comfort. The independent thinker is neither rebellious for the sake of rebellion nor compliant for the sake of acceptance. They are guided by discernment, the ability to separate truth from illusion, fact from opinion, and wisdom from noise. Independent thinking requires solitude, not loneliness, but solitude, time away from the constant voices of others. In silence, you begin to hear your own mind. You begin to discover what you truly believe, what you truly value, and what you truly desire. Without this inner dialogue, it is impossible to think freely because the mind becomes an echo of the loudest external influence. The world encourages constant connection, but connection without reflection breeds confusion. The person who never steps back cannot see clearly. Solitude gives clarity, it resets the compass of thought. Fear is the greatest enemy of independent thinking. Fear of being wrong, of being criticized, of being different. But true thinkers understand that being different is not a defect, it is a necessity. Progress has always been driven by those who thought differently, by those who saw beyond convention, questioned the unquestioned, and dared to stand by their convictions even in isolation. Thinking independently requires emotional resilience because it often means walking a path others misunderstand. Yet the reward is authenticity, a life built on your own truth, not borrowed opinions. The modern world makes independent thought more difficult than ever. Information moves faster than reflection. Algorithms feed us what we already agree with, surrounding us in digital mirrors that reinforce bias. It takes conscious effort to step outside that comfort zone and explore opposing viewpoints. To think independently, you must expose yourself to diverse perspectives, not to accept them all, but to understand them. The strong mind listens without surrendering its reason. It examines, questions, and integrates knowledge without losing its core. Independent thinking thrives in open mindedness, a willingness to explore without fear of contradiction. Another aspect of independent thought is intellectual humility. To think for yourself does not mean assuming you are always right. It means valuing truth more than pride. It means being willing to change your mind when evidence demands it. Many confuse stubbornness with strength, but real strength lies in flexibility, the ability to adapt, learn, and evolve. The independent thinker does not worship certainty. They pursue understanding. They are not attached to being right. They are committed to being real. Independent thinking also applies to your personal life, to how you define success, happiness, and purpose. Society offers ready made answers: money, status, popularity. But independent thought asks, do these things fulfill me, or do they just impress others? The moment you define success in your own terms, you begin to live consciously rather than mechanically. You stop chasing what others value and start building what gives your life meaning. This is not arrogance, it is authenticity, the realization that your path does not need validation to be valuable. Developing an independent mind takes discipline. It requires you to read widely, to think critically, and to question respectfully. It requires courage to stand by your insights even when they contradict the majority. But most importantly, it requires faith in your ability to think clearly. You must believe that your mind, when trained and open, is capable of discovering truth. That belief is the root of freedom. Without it, you are always dependent on others to tell you who you are and what to think. Thinking independently is not an act of isolation from others, but of liberation within yourself. It is the art of engaging with the world while remaining centered in your own judgment. It allows you to contribute to society not as a follower repeating old ideas, but as a creator shaping new ones. It empowers you to act from conviction rather than compliance, from awareness rather than assumption. In the end, to think independently is to live consciously. It is to free your mind from inherited limits and to take responsibility for your beliefs. It is not an easy path. It demands courage, humility, and persistence, but it is the only path that leads to true clarity. Because when you think for yourself, you stop existing as a reflection of others and start existing as the expression of your own truth. That is the essence of freedom, not the absence of influence, but the presence of understanding. Purpose is the invisible compass that gives direction to your life. It is the force that keeps you grounded when chaos surrounds you, the inner voice that whispers, keep going, when the world seems indifferent. To anchor yourself in purpose is to root your existence in meaning rather than circumstance. It means waking up each day knowing that your actions, however small, are part of something larger than personal comfort or recognition. Without purpose, the mind drifts, pulled by trends, opinions, and temporary desires. But with purpose, every experience, even the painful ones, becomes part of a greater design. Many people live without this anchor. They move from goal to goal, chasing achievement but never fulfillment. They confuse activity with direction, believing that business equals progress. But motion without meaning is just movement in circles. Purpose provides orientation. It reminds you not only where you are going, but why you began. It transforms effort into devotion, struggle into sacrifice, and failure into learning. Without it, every challenge feels like a burden. With it, every challenge becomes a step toward something sacred. Anchoring yourself in purpose begins with awareness, the willingness to ask the deeper questions. Why am I here? What am I meant to contribute? What impact do I want my life to have? These are not questions the world can answer for you. They require introspection, honesty, and sometimes solitude. Purpose is not found through comparison, it is discovered through connection. Connection with your values, your experiences, and your calling. The clues are already within you, hidden in what moves your heart, what angers your conscience, and what brings you peace. Once you identify your purpose, the next step is commitment. A purpose without commitment is only a wish. True purpose demands consistency, especially when progress feels slow or unseen. It requires that you continue showing up even when results are uncertain. The power of purpose lies not in instant gratification, but in persistence. Every great achievement, every lasting legacy, was built by someone who refused to abandon their mission when the excitement faded. The stronger your purpose, the steadier your resolve. Anchoring yourself in purpose also transforms the way you view pain. When you know why you're enduring something, the suffering gains meaning. It no longer feels like punishment but preparation. The struggle becomes a necessary teacher, shaping your character to match your calling. Every obstacle becomes a test of how deeply your purpose is rooted. Shallow motives are washed away by difficulty, but deep purpose remains unmoved. It doesn't escape hardship, it extracts wisdom from it. That's why those who live with purpose rarely crumble under pressure. Their foundation is built on meaning, not on convenience. Purpose also brings clarity in a world that thrives on distraction. The modern mind is constantly pulled in a thousand directions by ambition, comparison, and noise. But purpose acts as a filter, separating what matters from what doesn't. It helps you say no without guilt and yes without hesitation. When your actions align with your purpose, your life gains rhythm. You no longer waste time chasing validation or worrying about the opinions of others because you understand that purpose is not about applause. It's about alignment. It's not about doing everything, but about doing the right things for the right reasons. Anchoring yourself in purpose also redefines success. Success is no longer measured by wealth, titles, or status, but by integrity, growth, and impact. You stop asking, "What can I get?" and start asking, "What can I give?" This shift is profound. It moves you from self centered ambition to service centered fulfillment. The most powerful people in history were not driven by greed or ego, they were driven by purpose. They saw their work not as labor, but as legacy. When you live with purpose, your efforts stop being about survival and start being about significance. But purpose is not something you find once and keep forever. It evolves as you grow. Life changes, experiences deepen, and your understanding of meaning matures. That's why anchoring yourself in purpose is an ongoing process, a daily reformation of what matters most. You have to revisit your purpose, nurture it, and allow it to expand as your wisdom does. What begins as personal ambition may evolve into a calling to uplift others. What starts as a desire for success may grow into a mission for contribution. Purpose is alive, breathing, changing with you. Living with purpose also connects you to something timeless. When your actions are guided by a deeper meaning, you stop fearing time. You stop worrying about how quickly things happen because you understand that purpose operates beyond deadlines. You begin to live intentionally, appreciating each step of the journey rather than rushing toward the outcome. This mindset replaces anxiety with peace. You realize that every day spent honoring your purpose is a day well lived, regardless of results. In the end, to anchor yourself in purpose is to live with direction in a world that constantly tries to distract you. It is to root yourself so deeply in meaning that no storm can uproot your spirit. Purpose gives you endurance when others give up, faith when others doubt, and focus when others drift. It turns existence into expression, effort into art, and work into worship. When you are anchored in purpose, you are no longer lost in the tides of circumstance. You are guided by the steady current of meaning that flows through everything you do. Growth is the ongoing conversation between who you are and who you're becoming. It is the silent agreement you make with yourself to never settle, never stop learning, and never allow comfort to become your cage. To commit to lifelong growth is to accept that you are both a masterpiece and a work in progress, perfectly unfinished, constantly evolving, always capable of becoming more aware, more disciplined, and more alive. It means embracing life not as a destination, but as a continuous process of transformation where every experience has the potential to refine your character and deepen your wisdom. True growth begins with humility, the courage to admit that you don't know everything. Many people stop growing the moment they start believing they've arrived. They close themselves off from new ideas, new perspectives, and new challenges because they mistake stability for success. But growth cannot exist where the mind has become rigid. The moment you stop questioning, you stop expanding. The moment you stop learning, you start declining. A strong mind recognizes that wisdom is not about knowing all the answers. It's about staying curious enough to keep asking the right questions. To grow continuously, you must learn to see every situation as a classroom. Life will teach you through success, but it will educate you more deeply through failure. Every disappointment, every rejection, every detour carries a lesson that, if embraced, becomes a stepping stone toward mastery. The difference between those who grow and those who don't lies in perspective. Some see obstacles as punishment, others see them as preparation. When you approach life with the mindset of a student, nothing is wasted, not the heartbreak, not the struggle, not even the waiting. Everything becomes a lesson in endurance, faith, and refinement. Committing to lifelong growth also means refusing to live by yesterday's understanding. The person you were last year had different fears, beliefs, and limitations. Growth requires that you shed outdated versions of yourself the same way a tree sheds old leaves, not because they were bad, but because they've served their purpose. Too many people cling to their past identities out of comfort or nostalgia, but holding on to who you were prevents you from becoming who you could be. Real progress demands reinvention. It asks you to challenge your patterns, update your mindset, and evolve beyond your former boundaries. This kind of commitment requires consistency. Growth is not an occasional burst of inspiration, it's a daily discipline. It's choosing to read when you could scroll, to reflect when you could react, to improve when you could remain the same. Every small act of discipline compounds over time, building inner strength and mental clarity. You don't become great overnight, you become great through thousands of quiet choices that no one sees. The moments when you push yourself to stay focused, to learn something new, to face an uncomfortable truth. Those are the seeds of transformation that eventually bloom into mastery. Yet, growth isn't just about acquiring knowledge or skills, it's about expanding your capacity for compassion, patience, and understanding. The more you grow internally, the more your outer world changes. You begin to see life through a wider lens, less judgment, more empathy, less competition, more collaboration. Growth softens the ego while strengthening the spirit. It teaches you that you don't need to be better than others. You just need to be better than the person you were yesterday. It is a process of evolution, not comparison. Committing to growth also means embracing discomfort. Growth rarely feels good in the moment. It often arrives disguised as confusion, challenge, or uncertainty. But those uncomfortable spaces are where transformation takes root. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly without pressure. Likewise, you can't expand your potential without friction. Every time you stretch beyond what feels familiar, you are building resilience, adaptability, and depth. Comfort may feel safe, but it is the enemy of expansion. The best things in life, clarity, confidence, freedom, are earned through discomfort. To grow for life, you must also surround yourself with people who challenge you. Growth thrives in environments of accountability and inspiration. Spend time with those who question your limits, who encourage you to aim higher, who remind you of your potential when you forget it. The company you keep shapes the person you become. If you walk with those who are content to stay stagnant, you will eventually stop moving. But if you surround yourself with those who strive, reflect, and evolve, growth becomes a natural rhythm. Lifelong growth also requires balance, the ability to grow without burning out. There will be seasons for expansion and seasons for rest, moments for pushing forward and moments for reflection. Growth doesn't mean constant motion, it means conscious motion. It's not about forcing progress, but aligning with it. When you learn to listen to your inner rhythm, growth becomes sustainable, steady, meaningful, and deeply fulfilling. Ultimately, committing to lifelong growth is an act of self respect. It is the recognition that your potential is infinite and that life's purpose is not to arrive at perfection, but to keep becoming. Every book you read, every challenge you overcome, every lesson you integrate adds a layer to your depth and wisdom. You are not defined by your past or limited by your present. You are shaped by your willingness to grow beyond both. The journey never ends, and that's the beauty of it. When you live with this mindset, life itself becomes your teacher. Every sunrise invites reflection, every failure offers instruction, and every victory reveals another horizon to pursue. You stop chasing quick satisfaction and start embracing continuous elevation. You begin to see growth not as a burden, but as a privilege, the privilege of becoming the fullest, most conscious version of yourself. And when you commit to that journey without end, you realize that true success is not found at the finish line. It is found in the act of becoming over and over again.